I've tried recording this video once already, and it went terribly. And that's because it was partially scripted, and I guess I just really don't enjoy doing the scripted type videos anymore, because they're just not genuine. And in this video I wanted to talk about something that's maybe a bit emotional, but it's also something that I think is quite important. And usually on this channel we don't cover these types of subjects in depth. We don't do discussion type videos that often, but this is one that I thought was quite important because I've had a lot of discussions with other creators on YouTube recently, including within the Blender community, and we all think it's something important that people should know about, people should talk about, people should think about. So what I want to tell you today is how you should learn to ignore people. Now that sounds like really terrible advice because you should not go through life trying to ignore people. But for artists and content creators out there, it's something that's really significant, something that you should pay attention to. Because one thing I see new artists and new content creators doing is falling into the trap of ignoring all the criticism they receive, or alternatively, onboarding all of the criticism they receive and not knowing how to filter through it. Because inevitably, when you're putting content out publicly on the internet, you're bound to encounter people with opinions that are beneficial towards your growth, but also very detrimental towards your growth. You have to make a decision based on your personality and what you want to do of where to take your content. One thing that people really have trouble identifying is the difference between technical and stylistic critique. Technical critique is much more objective, how to apply certain skills, how to use software, efficient techniques, workflow tips, and stuff like that. Stylistic critique is much more personal opinion than anything else. People that give critique sometimes package these two things together. They don't know how to separate them when giving that information to another artist. Sometimes artists, especially newer artists, have difficulty in differentiating between those different types of critique. And sometimes that can lead to a detrimental effect on creativity, especially in the long run, where, say, new and motivated artists know that they need to listen to critique, so they'll apply as much of the information that people are giving to them, while simultaneously not realizing that it's dissuading them from trying different art styles and developing their own style. But it highly depends on what you as a content creator, as an individual, want to do with your life and with your work. Some people just want to make work for hobbyist reasons, some people want to look for jobs. In the case of wanting to end up in a job, taking 3D art for example, then one can make the case that learning how to do a specific style of environment, character art, etc. is a beneficial thing, but that case won't apply for everyone. And that's why I think one thing that's really important is teaching people how to look at themselves, their personalities, what they want to do with their work, and then learn how to take information from other people and filter it to see what applies to them and what does not. So they're not taking on information and applying critical opinions that will lead them astray from their goals. There are so many content creators. My favorite kinds are the ones that are treading new ground, the ones that may not know exactly what they want to do, but they're making their own thing and they're just trailblazing it. They don't care how many followers they have, they don't care what people think, they're just compelled to do it. And I love seeing people like that. And I get messages from people that are starting to do that and sharing their work. Maybe they're making a YouTube channel, maybe they're just building a portfolio, and they come to me for advice, and not just advice in terms of what to make, what to present, how to present it, but also in terms of emotional support. And sometimes that's difficult to provide, because in a lot of those situations, the answer can only be taught through personal experience. For example, coming back to the theme of learning to ignore people, I fairly often get messages from new YouTubers who send me snippets of hate comments they've received, and they're asking for advice how to respond, how to feel about it, how do you handle it, maybe even looking for validation from me. And I have a real soft spot for them, and I want to help them, but I feel like there's lots of people out there that will also benefit from hearing this. Most of my advice can be diluted down into two words, which is, who cares? Not who cares about your troubles, it's who cares about what people think. If you're so lucky and fortunate enough to be able to make things and enjoy it, and have other people witness the stuff that you make, then why on earth should one or a few negative comments stop you from doing that? All of us who make things and share things online have to deal with putting our personal beliefs and pride in what we make up against the views of so many people, tens, hundreds, thousands of people, especially in a community as massive and as diverse as the Blender community. I know that all of us who make content for this community have in some way dealt with strong opinions, people telling us to stop making things or make the things that only they want to see and whatever, and you've just got to learn to block it out. At the end of the day, You're on a personal journey. However much you want to open up to other people is up to you. However much you want to share your work with other people is up to you. And yes, it's a good idea to take on board the ideas of the people that have been with you the whole way through. Those are the people that you shouldn't ignore. They're the ones that know how to support you. They're the ones that want to support you more than anything else. But as you grow and as your audience grows, you're inevitably going to bump into people that really don't like you, that don't like what you do, and that are going to try and push you astray from your personal path. And really, you've just got to learn to ignore it. This line of work might make you a little bit narcissistic, but I don't think that's an apt description of how your mentality will change if you start to learn to ignore people. Because I've noticed, for me at least, when getting hate comments right at the beginning, it was sadness mixed with anger and a desire to retaliate. But now it's not that. Because in my personal experience, the ones that provide the hate comments are not the people at the top of their game. They're not the people you want to take advice from. They're not usually the people with the largest followings or the best artwork. They're usually the people that are possibly newer learners that have gone down a path of high frustration, people that have stagnated in their learning somewhere and they're getting annoyed about it, people that are angry at the universe and they're wondering, why is this person doing well while I'm stuck here? These are people that may be young, they may be old, they may not have had the life experience to learn about the common decency of how to talk to people online. And really, it stopped being anger and it started turning more into pity. Once you get to that point, if you get to that point, hate comments don't really bother you that much anymore. Now, I know that's easy for someone like me to say from this position, and I'm sure that not everyone will reach that, and I'm sure that I won't feel that way every single day. I'm sure that in the future I will have down days when things like hate comments really affect my decisions and what I choose to do. But I know that, at least for now, and at least for the last few months, I've been able to get into a mind state where they really don't affect me at all. But I know that I've really not enjoyed hate comments in the past. So I do feel an emotional connection with people whenever they email me asking for help with it. And I've always taken the time to make sure that I respond to everyone that's ever come to me for help for that sort of issue. Now, for me, I think one of the most important things as a content creator online is to make sure you enjoy what you're doing. I know, and I'm very aware, that not everyone is in a position where they can put the enjoyment of their work ahead of everything else. A lot of people have to make personal, emotional sacrifices for the sake of stability, quite often financial stability. And it's difficult, and it's a situation where everyone needs to decide the small steps they need to take for themselves. But ideally, I think we all have the common aim that enjoyment in our work is the priority. And for other YouTubers and content creators out there who are struggling with the opinions of other people online and they're having such negative responses to receiving hate comments and they don't know why, then I think that you need to first of all question yourself why that is. It will take a certain amount of self-reflection. And the question, tough as it may be, I would ask you is, are you really making content for your own enjoyment, first of all, or are you perhaps making content primarily for validation? Sometimes it may be very difficult to distinguish between the two, because one can get enjoyment from validation. But I think maybe if validation is the primary focus of producing the content, then maybe that's why when receiving the hate comments, this person is denying you that validation you're aiming to receive, and in doing so they're cutting deeper than you possibly thought they could. In which case the solution would be to not make content for validation and instead make it for blind enjoyment. What I mean by blind enjoyment is making content in a way where you're unaware of the validation you're receiving. Now, I get that sounds strange. That may sound maybe counterproductive to a lot of other content creators out there, but I think there's some truth in it, and that's why I'm making this video. I've spoken at length with CG Matter about this, and we've both come to some sort of agreement, because we both have a similar mind state, which is that we really enjoy the idea of making content, but there's certain things in the content development process that we really don't enjoy. And they're the repetitive things, like the structural things, the things that reduce the amount of time that's spent on creativity. And sometimes, like I'm sure other content creators out there feel, no matter what you're doing, whether or not you're on YouTube, whether you do any sort of Patreon, ArtStation, Instagram, whatever, there comes a moment where you just want to break out of it and do something completely different. And a case in point for this, using CG Matter, is that if you're following him, you know that he does some random things every now and again. He's done raps on his channel, Recently, he's done ASMR Blender tutorials, which is something I never thought I would see, but it's absolutely hilarious. But people slate him for it. He's been dislike bombed, and it's just something you have to deal with. But the thing is, the question is, does he enjoy it? Is he having fun with it? Does it entertain him? And I think it does. So, does it matter what other people think? Now, there's a question of responsibility that comes in here, because if you've raised an audience, and they're giving you their attention, and they've given you their support over time, are you responsible for their interests? Should you put your interests aside and make way for theirs? I'm not going to try and take a moral high ground on this, because I don't think that's a question that's ever been answered. But in my opinion, if the content creator is responsible to pay attention to the interests of the audience members, then the same should apply in reverse. Then the audience members should be responsible enough to respect the interests of the content creator. Because I believe this business of providing content online and people consuming the content, it's a give and take situation. We give and you take, and you give and we take. And even in between other creators, there's a prosumer relationship, a producer-consumer relationship. Everyone produces content and everyone consumes content, even if the content is as dull as messages on chat platforms. We're all integrated and connected. It's a very personal relationship when you think about it, but that personality is diminished just by the medium itself. We can't tell people's faces, people's emotions, people's responses to traumatic events or their moral compass or whatever, just by reading their name on a comment feed. Inherently, it's a limited platform, and that limitation causes frustrations. But what's the point I'm trying to make out of all of this? As a community manager, community leader, I own the Discord server, I have a big mailing list, I've got the social media followers, I've got your YouTube audience to attend to. I see so many different personalities and so many different types of creativity. And the one thing that upsets me more than anything else is when people get dissuaded, when people are upset because they feel like they're losing motivation. And it's not necessarily the lack of motivation that upsets them, it's the fact that they used to have motivation and now they have less. That somehow there's a change, and that change is a trend, and that maybe one day they'll have nothing. I would like to be a figure that says to people, potential creatives out there that feel like they're not getting the encouragement they need, that someone out there adores your work. And don't you ever let any single person or any group of people tell you that your work is not good enough. If you are interested in making something, then you go and make it. It's so easy to identify a minority of hateful opinions, but it's so difficult to point out the waves and waves of quiet, content support. Most people are wonderful. Most people are brilliant, kind, appreciative human beings. And if you do create content, and if there are people that respect it, that enjoy it, that is more reason than any other to keep going. But also at the end of the day, everyone has said to me, and I've always said to myself, that if you're not getting hate comments, then you're doing something wrong. You know you're touching more corners of the world when people start complaining about the smallest possible things. And if you need help with dealing with it, then there's always people you can talk to. There's always people that will be willing to share your work if you just ask, if you just look in the right corner. This Blender community is absolutely incredible. Never did I think that I'd be going to the Blender conference just 1 year after starting the YouTube channel, meeting people that I used to watch, thinking that they were untouchably famous in the community. It's just so fascinating how when you start making stuff and you start putting things out there and people start reacting and you start connecting, you see just how interactive the world is. There's so many possibilities of things to do. I'm in such a fortunate position. I can wake up and make what I want and put it out there and people will see it. So the reason I'm making this video is because I know there's a few people that have been waiting for this one. I've offhandedly mentioned that I was going to make a video about learning to ignore people, and there's a few there was a few vocal personalities that were like, do it, do it, do it. And here we are. I don't usually get this one-to-one on this channel. I don't know how often this will happen. In fact, these videos don't usually do that well in this community. People don't like face-to-face discussions. They want quick tips on how to achieve good results with the minimal effort possible. They want clickbait, they want add-ons, they want tools, they want resources, things that will help them. And that's understandable. The amount of information and resources available on the internet is mind-blowing. The amount that's added every day is just cataclysmic. But I feel like it's nice just to stop every once in a while and talk about things. As I said at the beginning, I recorded this video once with a script, and it was terrible. I'm moving away from doing scripted content. It's a nightmare to edit. It might be easily translatable, but it doesn't represent my personality. It doesn't feel genuine. Yes, I managed to get across every piece of information that I could possibly think about. It's well planned out, but it doesn't feel natural. So if there are any other creators out there who are struggling, who feel like they've lost their motivation, maybe you've received a couple of offhanded comments from people and you don't quite know how to handle it, I would say, don't you dare stop. If you have the creative flair, the creative passion, a message to tell the universe, you go and do it. Someone out there will appreciate it. So I hope this mess of a video will help someone, and I hope people actually made it this far into the video. I guess now's probably the time to move on to the sponsor. So I'm sure you've all heard of Sketchfab before. It's a 3D model viewing service, which allows you to look around your models in a 3D space on the web. They undoubtedly provide the best 3D model viewer available, and it's also got so many options for embedding into your websites. Now, I'm sure that many of you have heard about Sketchfab before, but one thing you might not know is that they have an online store where you can buy and sell 3D models. Of course, all the models on their store you can preview with their amazing viewer, which also comes with a model inspector, so you can preview all the geometry and all the different textures before you buy it. That way you know exactly what you're getting. If you're interested in selling your own content on the store, then you can also consider applying to become a seller. I'm not lying or exaggerating just for the sake of the sponsor when I say that I sometimes go to the Sketchfab store just to have a look around the models, because really some of the content on there is so high quality and just really fun to fly around. If you're interested in checking out the Sketchfab store, then there will of course be a link in the video description. So thank you Sketchfab for sponsoring this video. And to the rest of you lovely viewers, hopefully you found this video interesting. I'm sorry if it's not the kind of video you usually like to watch, but this is something I wanted to do. So thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.